Hello and welcome everybody to our council meeting, dated Wednesday the 18th of August 2021. Today's meeting is being live streamed. As the meeting chair, I give my consent for this open council meeting to be streamed live, recorded and published online in accordance with council's live streaming policy and governance rules. The chair and or the CEO have the discretion and the authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and or unacceptable behaviour and or comments. Thank you. Virtual meeting statement. The COVID-19 Omnibus Bill 2020 provision allows council meeting attendance by electronic means. The requirement of the meeting being open to public is satisfied by the meeting being streamed live to council internet. In the event of technical issues with the live stream, the meeting will be adjourned. Councillors are deemed as being in attendance if they can hear proceedings, they can see other members in attendance and can be seen by other members, and they can be heard to speak. A reminder that mobile phones please be turned off. I now ask Councillor Letitia Lang to read the statement of acknowledgement.
West Coast Shire Council acknowledges Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the first Australians and recognises that they have a unique relationship with the land and water. Council further recognises that we are situated on the land of the traditional owners, the Bunurong and Bunwurrung members of the Kulin Nation, who have lived here for thousands of years. We offer our respects to their elders, past and present, and through them, all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, wherever they are.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. And Councillor Lasser will read the councillor statement.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. All members of this council pledge to the West Coast Shire community to consider every item listed on this agenda based on the individual merits of each item, without bias or prejudice, by maintaining an open mind and disregarding councillors' personal interests so as to avoid any conflict with our public duties. Any councillor having a conflict of interest in any item will make a proper prior disclosure to the meeting and will not participate in the debate or vote on the issue. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lasser. Okay, present and apologies. We have everybody present, so no apologies. Declaration of interest. I have Councillor Rooks has declared a conflict of interest for agenda item number H6 under section 127 of the Local Government Act 2020. So when it comes time to get to item number H6, we'll ask Councillor Rooks to leave the room. Confirmation of minutes. Can I have somebody move and second that we confirm the minutes of council meeting held on the 21st of July 2021. Councillor Kent, seconded Councillor Lang. All in favour? Councillor Tassari, Bauer, Holstead, Lark, Lasserve, Lang, Kent, Rooks and Whelan. Carried. Okay, public question time. So as we have done in the past, there's quite a few questions here. I will read out the questions and our CEO shall read out the responses. Okay, question number one is from Melissa O'Loughlin and it's regarding Surf Beach Road. When will the roads in Surf Beach be sealed and current poor drainage be fixed?
Through the Mayor, community engagement on a proposed special rate scheme to construct roads and drainage in Surf Beach and Sunderland Bay is planned to commence later in 2021. Council encourages the community to get involved and provide their feedback on the need for the project.
Question two is from Joy Button and its topic is community halls, and there's two questions from Joy. And why are hall hire fees being introduced in all halls across the Shire, including community groups without any communication or consultation with the communities involved, and why have the fees been introduced in Coronet Bay prior to any other halls? And question 2, why are community groups required to gain approval through community asset committees and then through one council officer if community groups require fees to be waived when community halls were built by community funds for the community in which they are situated? Ms Wasty.
Through the Mayor, all of Council's community halls have higher fees. Coronet Bay fees were reviewed earlier in the year and changed to better reflect operating costs. Community asset committees do not have authority to waive high fees. Any request for a waiver must be approved by a council officer.
Yeah, question 3 is from Joanna Furness. Its topic is drainage, roads and paved paths in estates. When will the estate where I live have drainage, roads and paved paths completed? I was told by council in 2012 that it would be done within 10 years. Surrounding estates have been done, why not ours? Specifically Teddy Bear Lane, Scenic Drive, Bayview Drive and Outlook Drive. Ms Wasty.
Through the Mayor, a special rate scheme in the Koala Estate is identified in Council's Urban Upgrade Priority Program for 2023. It is currently identified as being the 4th highest priority on our improvement program.
Question 4 is from Professor Paul Dugas and its topic is pavement repairs. Could you please inform me why the repairs to the dangerously unsafe pavement at heavily trafficked corner of Law Avenue and Seaview Street were deferred from the 2020-21 budget for 2 years and the timing and costs of these urgent works? Ms Wasty.
Through the Mayor, Make Safe works on the corner of Law Avenue and Seaview Street have been programmed and funding will be available next financial year for permanent renewal works. Permanent renewal works will involve relaying brick paving to match the local street. Council's road renewal works are prioritised annually based on risk and condition within available budget.
Question 5 is from Graham Jolly and its topic is capital works projects. Capital reports a number of Council reports a number of capital works projects. Please inform for a number of projects when will construction commence for the Phillip Island Transfer Station, Mars Landing Boat Ramp Upgrade, Regional Skate Park and Cows Activity Centre Plan. Ms Wasty.
Through the Mayor, Phillip Island Transfer Station is anticipated to begin construction in the 2022-2023 financial year once final designs and permits have been obtained. The Mars Landing Boat Ramp Upgrade is a Better Boating Victoria project and subject to state government timeframes. The Regional Skate Park project will not progress until a review of the Bass Coast Skate Strategy has been completed and a new site for the project confirmed. Cows Activity Centre Plan is in the early stages of design and has been forecast in the long-term financial plan to begin construction in 2022-2023.
Question 6 is also from Graham Jolly. Its topic is KPIs for financials. Mayor, will you please inform all details of any new KPIs for financials of Council, including capital works projects the councillors as a group have introduced during their first term? Ms Wasty.
Through the Mayor, Council is currently identifying key strategic indicators as part of the Council Plan development process. These will be presented to Council in October 2021 in line with Local Government Act 2020 requirements.
Question 7 is from Gay Jolly. Its topic is Inverloch Community Hub, all air conditioning and solar panels. Would Council please provide an update explanation of progress for the Inverloch Community Hub Hall air conditioning and solar panel projects, which has an allocation of $974,201 in forecast carryovers? Ms Wasty.
Through the Mayor, the solar panel component of this project has been completed in the 2020-21 financial year. Further assessments in relation to the structures to the roof and hall areas within the building are being undertaken, and these assessments will inform future works.
Okay, question 8 is also from Gay Jolly. Its topic is financial figures. Would Council please provide financial figures for rates only income garbage only income, including total investments as of the 30th of the 6th, 2021. Ms. Wasty.
Through the Mayor, this information will be available following the finalisation and external audit of Council's 2020-21 financial statements.
Question 9 is from Anne and Richard Adolphson, and its topic is stormwater roadside pits. Would Council please provide information replanning for the cleaning of all stormwater roadside pits in Cape Woolamai for 2021-22? Are you aware many pits are blocked? Ms. Wasty.
Through the Mayor, Council has a program to clean and clear roadside stormwater pits, both proactively and reactively following requests. Further information and locations of block pits is currently being sought from customers. The community are encouraged to contact Council's customer service to report any drainage issues or concerns.
Question 10 is also from Anne and Richard Adolphson, and its topic is Surf Beach Estate Road Upgrade. The Surf Beach Estate will be asked to determine a roads upgrade special charge scheme in the near future. Will Council consider a partial upgrade at ratepayers' request when asked questions by Council during the survey process? Ms. Wasty.
Through the Mayor, Council will consult the community on their roads, traffic and drainage needs and determine whether there is adequate community support before progressing to costed concept designs. Several design options would then be developed based on community input, and these options may include different levels of upgrade.
Question 11 is from Claire Diffie. Its topic is Cows Community and Cultural Centre and Wonthaggi Activity Centre Plan. Council has informed new borrowings of 2021-22 will be 10.25 million. Please provide dates as when the $10 million for the new Cows Community Cultural Centre and the $250,000 for the Wonthaggi Activity Centre Plan priorities will be taken up by Council. Ms. Wasty.
Through the Mayor, Council has access to a low-interest state government loan which can be drawn down in stages as required. As a result of successful advocacy resulting in $5.3 million in grant funding, these borrowings have not yet been required and now are expected to be used during 2022.
Question 12 is from Claire Diffie. It's just lost someone. Sorry, someone's just gone off my screen. Yep, okay, still got a quorum. Okay, question 12 is from Claire Diffie. Its topic is red landfill waste bins. Mayor, is it a fact the Council will not arrange to have the red landfill waste bin picked up during peak times in the Shire because not one elected councillor has used a notice of motion seeking additional bin pickups in the peak times? Ms. Wasty.
Through the Mayor, councillors have engaged in many discussions on Council's approach to waste management and are aware of the diverse community opinions. Council introduced a food and garden organics waste system in 2017, which has reduced the amount of waste going to landfill and is a full cost recovery system. Council will continue to provide a fortnightly red bin general waste curbside collection service for all users throughout the Bass Coast. Additional pickups can be arranged on a user pays basis. During peak holiday periods, Council will continue to provide additional recycling services.
Question 13 is from Michael Goods. Its topic is two questions. Topic, capital works projects. Number 1, Mayor, when will Council start construction for a number of capital works projects being the Pickle new building, Cows Community and Cultural Centre, Darlston Recreation Reserve floodlighting? And question 2, would Council please provide financial figures for the overall total funding allocation and the overall expenses for completed capital works projects during the 2020-21 year, both as total figures?
Through the Mayor, construction for Pickle will commence on successful approval of a planning permit, of which public notice has recently been undertaken and is subsequently been assessed through the planning process. Construction of the Cows Community and Cultural Centre is anticipated to commence towards the end of 2021 once a successful builder has been appointed. The design and construction for the Darlston Recreation Reserve lighting project will be advertised for tender in early September 2021. Follow-up details will be provided after the completion of the tender process. Council officers are currently working through end-of-year financial processes. This information will be available following the finalisation and external audit of Council's 2020-2021 financial statements.
Question 14 is from Pete Godridge. Its topic is the Inverloch Surf Beach protection. There's two parts to the question. Number one, how much has been spent on placing sacrificial sand on the Inverloch Surf Beach in order to protect the surf lifesaving clubhouse during the recent high tides? And two, what was the source of the funds? Ms Wasty.
Through the Mayor, Council has recently undertaken sand re-nourishment works at each end of the seawall on the Inverloch Surf Beach. This work is in response to end scour, which commonly occurs when structures are introduced to a sandy coast. The works have been undertaken to protect public assets, including the main access track and public open space. The Lifesaving Club building is already protected by the seawall. Works were completed in mid-June 2021, totalling $16,390, includes GST, and mid-July totalling $17,765. The works were funded from Council's general revenue.
Question 15 is from Jack Bickley. Its topic is the Inverloch erosion threat to Inverloch Rotary Club. There's two parts to the question. Is Council fully aware of the ongoing erosion threat to the Inverloch Rotary Club Rotunda and the tables on the Esplanade Inverloch? And two, is any erosion protection work intended there in the near future? Ms Wasty.
Through the Mayor, Council is monitoring the erosion which is occurring at the Inverloch foreshore to the south of Penniwells Avenue near the barbecue shelter. New coastal protection structures may be required should erosion continue in the area, and this would be informed by the work currently being undertaken as part of the Regional Assessment Strategic Plan.
Question 16 is from Kevin Griffin. Its topic is Inverloch Shared Pathway. With regard to design option 2 for the Inverloch Shared Pathway, is the Council willing to release to the community full details of the planning permit submitted by Council to DELWP, the additional information requested by DELWP, and the information subsequently provided to DELWP by Council? Ms Wasty.
Through the Mayor, this information pertaining to the permit will be made available on Council's website.
Question 17 is from Naomi Coleman. Its topic is Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and there's two parts to the question. Question 1, has Council officially noted the IPCC report, and does Council appreciate the urgency of action required? And question 2, what plans does government have to work with others? Council to advocate to state and federal governments on the need for urgent action. Will Council consider signing the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty as part of the advocacy? Ms Wasty.
Through the Mayor, Council recognises the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change IPCC report, which highlights the gravity of the situation and supports our September 2019 decision to declare a climate emergency in Bass Coast. Council has developed a climate change action plan together with our community, establishing a strong vision and plan to achieve net zero emissions by 2030. The plan recognises the role of both Council and the community and includes recommended actions for Council, households, businesses, industry and the agriculture sector. Council collaborates with other local councils to advocate for an effective climate emergency response from both state and federal level, including via the South East Council's Climate Change Alliance. Council's advocacy plan recognises the climate emergency and calls for the federal government to set a national emissions reduction target that is consistent with global efforts to limit temperature increases to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. Question 18 is from Robert Widdop, and its topic is paling fences between 119 and 121 Silverleaves Avenue. We seek clarification for fence between 119 and 121 Silverleaves. Landscape plans notes 10 and 11 refer to paling fences as labelled, where a low wire fence would not provide privacy for views in and out of living areas. We support a paling fence on the adjoining property. Ms Wasty. Through the Mayor, councillors will consider and debate all aspects and implications of this issue as part of Council's agenda.
Okay, question 19 is from Neil Rankin. Its topic is Granville Gravel Reserves and Committee of Management, and there's two parts to the question. Could Council please provide details of the Committee of Management that Bass Coast Shire Council uses to manage the Granville Gravel Reserve under the Crown Land Reserves Act 1978 and any other management arrangements used and around the reserve? And number two, could Council please provide details of the ownership of the various parcels of land making up the Granville Gravel Reserve? Ms. Wasty.
Through the Mayor, the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning are the owner of the Granville Gravel Reserve, 1719 Bass Highway. The quarry is operated by Sam Supplies under a works authority issued by the Department of Jobs, Precincts and Regions. Council is not aware of any committee of management appointed to manage land on or around this site. The Granville Gravel Reserve boundary is consistent with the boundary of the Works Authority. The neighbouring Granville Conservation Reserve to the south and west is managed by Parks Victoria. The neighbouring land parcel to the east and northeast, 1685 Bass Highway, is managed by Council as the Granville Transfer Station and Landfill. The neighbouring land parcel to the north is in private ownership. Council notes that a number of planning overlays apply across various parcels in this area, and these should not be confused with property boundaries.
Thank you, Ms. Wasty, and well done. And thank you to everybody for taking the time and effort to send those questions in. Okay, next on our agenda is petitions, joint letters, deputations and correspondence. We do have a petition. 41 Zelma Drive, Rhyll. There is a recommendation in the agenda. Can I have somebody move and second that we adopt the recommendations in the agenda? Councillor Kent, and seconded Councillor Rooks. Councillor Kent, would you like to speak to the motion or the recommendation, or put it straight to a vote?
I'm happy just to put it straight to a vote, Mr. Mayor.
We'll put it straight to a vote. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Holstead, Lark, Laserve, Lang, Kent, Rooks and Whelan. Carried. Notices of motion, we have none. Brings us to Mayor and Councillor reports. I will, as always, since we've been online, all the councillors shall send through their reports electronically, and they'll be uploaded on with the minutes of the meeting. But I would like to ask Councillor Bauer if you would like to speak on behalf of some condolences.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It gives me great sadness to report to the community of the passing of Neil Beddoe on the 13th of July this year. He was born on the 12th of May 1946. He went to school in Swinburne Technical College and was married to Christine for 23 years. They have 3 children, Nigel, Stacey and Sarah. He's been a long-standing and life member of the Cows Yacht Club, and he also did Swinburne Technical and Civil Engineering, and also did town planning at the Melbourne Institute of TAFE. His work in the community has been exemplary. He was a community consultation, a marina development at Martha Cove, City of Wyndham, City of Greater Geelong, and consultant to Yachting Victoria. His volunteering work in our area was the Western Port Safety Council, Victoria Yachting State Executive Member, Western Port Water, Chairman Customer Relation Panel, Bass Coast Health and Wonthaggi Hospital Master Plan Committee, Bass Coast Health Volunteer Transport Driver and L2P Program Driver and Program Steering Committee, as well as many other services. He was a recipient of the Emergency Services Medal in 2005. He was a keen car collector of Peugeot cars in particular. And on a personal note, I remember when I joined the Cows Yacht Club, in 1981, he put me under his wing for all the aspects of the club there. And when I was in the 2018 election, I still remember him going around to the elderly people's homes to make sure that they could vote in the elections. And in summary, I would just like to say, a man who gave so much to the community in time and experience to make things better for those that followed. He'll be sadly missed by our community. Thank you.
Well said, Councillor Bowen. Thank you. I would just like to make a quick note before we move on. My report will also be part of the minutes, but I'd like to acknowledge the final meeting of a very close friend of ours, Christian Stefani, who is finishing up before our next meeting. And Christian, as always, is sitting just over in the distance there, making sure that everything runs smoothly. But Christian, I've had the honour of working very, very closely with you for now 5 years. You're an amazing person. Our organisation will not be the same without you, and certainly you're moving on for bigger and better things for yourself and for personal reasons. I hope it works out well for you, but certainly I thank you for everything that you've done for me personally, but also professionally as well. Your whispers in my ear and keeping me on the straight and narrow have been, I've appreciated them very much, and I'm sure, mate, you'll do very, very well in your new role, and I wish you all the very best. So, Christian, well done.
Yeah.
All right. I couldn't look at him while I said that. I would have got teary. So, all right. So, brings us to reports requiring council decisions. So, item number H1, Planning Application 200133 to be presented by or introduced by Mr. Sturt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present Planning Application 200133, which seeks to use and develop the land for restrictive retail purposes, remove native vegetation, alter access to a road zone Category 1, seeks a reduction in car parking provision, and to display business identification signage at 334 to 336 White Rd Wonthaggi. This application is before council as the development cost is in excess of $3 million. The application was advertised and received 0 objections. The application has been assessed against the Bass Coast Planning Scheme and has been found to satisfy the provision of the relevant policy and zones. It is recommended that council resolve to issue a planning permit for Planning Application 200133, subject to the conditions as outlined in the report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sturt. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendation as agreed? It's Councillor Lang and Councillor Holstead.
I don't know the question, but
Okay, so Councillor Lang, Councillor Holstead. Councillor Lang, would you like to speak to the motion?
Very briefly, it's important to note that this is an approval for an application to build a homemaker centre on the outskirts of Wonthaggi. It's an optimal location for this kind of development. It will boost the economy and jobs. And it's also important to note that there were no objections to the application.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Holstead.
Yes, I too confer with Councillor Lang that this is a terrific outcome, or will be, for Wonthaggi where jobs are concerned. The only thing that I would maybe add there is that entrance into Wonthaggi would be great if council could look at doing some strategic work there, as you know, most of the visitors to Wonthaggi come through that route. But fantastic to see that business is going to invest further into Wonthaggi and allow for more jobs for the region. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Councillor Whelan, did you have a question?
yes, please, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask Mr. Sturton a question, and it's a sign of our. Look, I'm going to say, what's this place called again? Wonthaggi. Is being regarded that we've got this sort of investment coming. But Mr. Sturton, is it an opportunity, and have we taken the opportunity to make the developers aware of the fact that there's a climate emergency and it's an opportunity to ensure that a place like this that will no doubt consume a lot of energy is actually going with renewable energy, and also from an adaptation point of view that it's putting in place enough retardation in terms of water tanks and that sort of thing to make sure that there's not, for downpours and things like that, that they're properly managed?
Through you, Mr Mayor. So the application has been assessed and conditioned as far as the planning scheme will allow us at the moment with our environmentally sustainable design policies. To go any further than this will require a change to the planning scheme, which can be considered. We've got a planning scheme review which will occur later in 2021 and will reference other strategic documents such as the Climate Action Plan previously adopted by Council.
Thank you. Mr. Stern, you happy with that, Councillor Whelan?
If I could just make a couple of comments.
Yep.
But I think that we allow time to steal past us on these sorts of things and allowing for reviews of planning schemes into the future don't really cut it when we know the state government has an ESD, environmentally sustainable design roadmap. And I think proactivity in this regard would be good, even outside of the planning scheme, to be talking to developers. And look, I welcome them. I think this is good with the development we've got considering in North East and all that sort of thing, Wonthaggi. We need this sort of facility, but we need to be proactive in some of those other areas as well.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Would anyone else like to speak? Councillor Lasser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And look, I think this is a great development. I want to just say in support of Councillor Holstead's view and Councillor Whelan's, it's very important that when you do drive through towns, you do see some homemaker centres or car yards or something leading into a town. It's pretty ordinary, really. So I hope that we're going to be a leader in this and make sure that this development really does help showcase not just those businesses, but Wonthaggi for what it is, a regional centre, and certainly think that it's, to give it credit for its environmental sustainability and support that wholeheartedly. So I just want to make that statement that I think it's a great application, but there's things that we've got to consider along the way. Thank you.
Councillor Lasser. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? Councillor Lark.
Yeah, just a small point. I think it simply highlights the considerable confidence of parties to invest in Bass Coast and its future development and prosperity. I think it's a sign of confidence that such a development is going ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lark. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendation? No. Councillor Lang, would you like to summarise or put it to a vote?
Very briefly, I'll summarise. Yes, this is an opportunity to boost our local economy. Moving forward, it would be great to see some more proactive stance given we have declared a climate emergency. And at this stage, there is significant market demand for these kinds of projects and it's suitably located. So it's great to hope that we can support it. So put it to a vote. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads? Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Holstead, Lark, Lasser, Lang, Kent, Rooks and Whelan. Carried. Okay, item number H.2 Planning Application 200437 to be presented by Mr. Sturton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present Planning Application 200437, which seeks to use and develop the land for a single two-storey dwelling in the Design and Development Overlay 1, located at 34 Bayview Avenue, Inverloch. The application was advertised and received 5 objections. The application has been assessed against the Bass Coast Planning Scheme and has been found to satisfy the provision of the relevant policy and zones. It is recommended that Council resolve to issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit for application 200437. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sturton. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendation? Councillor Lang and Councillor Lark. Councillor Lang and Councillor Lark. Councillor Lang, would you like to?
Sorry, I wasn't seconding the motion.
Sorry, Councillor Lark.
I was foreshadowing. I was putting forward a foreshadowed motion.
You're foreshadowing. Thank you, Councillor Lark. So, Councillor Lang, you're moving. Does anyone want to second the recommendation? Councillor Lasser. Councillor Lang, can you speak to the motion? And I just highlight that Councillor Lark has foreshadowed an alternative. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm satisfied that the planners have ensured that this is a suitable development for the kind of density in that area of Inverloch. It's important to acknowledge there were 5 objections. However, I feel that the report and the briefings we have received have suitably addressed these concerns within the application, and the application satisfies the Bass Coast planning scheme.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Sir.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. No, look, I think Councillor, even though Councillor Lang has covered it, the 5 objections, I think the officers have responded to those objections. It's characteristics of the area with double-storey homes in the area. I know there's always a battle for the views. We know that. And so I'm happy with the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sir. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendation? Councillor Lark.
Thank you, Mayor. A loss of cherished views, question mark. There is no legal right to a view. However, a significant view can contribute to the amenity of a property. And in this instance, I believe the applicant has gone a long way with this development in its current form to result in significant loss of amenity for his or her neighbour. Given, in my opinion, overreach of the south side, the rear side of the property component of this development. That's the reason why I've put forward an alternative motion to ensure a fairer, equitable and reasonable outcome. I think there's significant loss of amenity, and I think the applicant has gone a long way to ensure this significant loss.
Thank you, Councillor Lark. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendation? No? Councillor Lang, would you like to summarise or put it to a vote?
Happy to put it to a vote, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads? Councillors Holstead, Lasser, Lang, Kent, Brooks, Whelan. Carried. Oh, and against? Councillors Tassari and Lark. Carried. Item number H.3 Planning Application 210021 to be presented by Mr Sturton.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present Planning Application 210021, which seeks to use and develop the land for a single 2-storey dwelling in the Design and Development Overlay 1, Vegetation Protection Overlay 1, and land subject to inundation overlay located at 119 Silverleaves Avenue, Silverleaves. The application is advertised and received 5 objections. The application has been assessed against Bass Coast Planning Scheme and has been found to satisfy the provision of the relevant policy and zones. It is recommended the Council resolve to issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit for application 210021. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Stern. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendations as they read? No, just Councillor Serve. Councillor Serve and seconded. Oh, Councillor Kent just got in there first. Okay, Councillor Serve.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Another one of those ones that a planning permit is required for the construction of a building with a height of more than 7 metres. You know, it's such a controversial thing when we're talking about heights and that, but I think the officers have in place all the clauses, the Design and Development Overlay Schedule 1, the Vegetation Protection Overlay and the land subject to inundation. And when all those factors are taken into account, have come up with a recommendation to grant a permit. So I'm happy with that response. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Serve. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy that this building will fit into the modern design work of several houses along that street. I know the neighbourhood has some very old properties there and there is change. And I think it's got to the point in that street area where we are looking at demolishing and then reconstruction of modern-looking houses. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendation as read to Councillor Whelan? Sorry, and then Councillor Rooks.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm troubled by this one, of course, as I usually am when there's the loss of mature trees, particularly in Silverleaves. That I take exception to the report that says that there's minimal wildlife corridor impacts and habitat impacts. I'm not sure what the author of that report thinks a tree is. It's a significant habitat. I visited there yesterday and I met the owners, Trent and Vicky, and they're really genuine people, and I think they're trying to do the right thing. It's bloody hard to do the right thing when when you have a block that's in an area that's a strong conservation zone. So it's fraught with problems. The height is not such a problem to me, as it's a fall of about 2 metres over that block, and they're significantly lower than the two neighbouring places in the first place. So that point's doesn't trouble me greatly. I've been banging my head against the wall for 5 years on trying to save trees in Silverleaves with not terribly great impact, I might say, and I know there's 2 or 3 other applications, 2 or 3 of those are in Silverleaves Avenue. So this becomes a serious ongoing problem. So I thought I'd take a different approach, and after speaking with the owners, Trent and Vicky, I'm going to challenge them to make a difference and to get on board with the likes of the Silverleaves Conservation Society and make a difference, because we have people, and I'm not just absolutely distinguish this from the owners in this instance, we have people along that road that are actually wholesalely cutting down coastal vegetation to get a view. And there's one that advertises it as a private access to the beach. Now that's just not acceptable. Now I'm hoping the Silverleaves Conservation Society has called on council to do this, to take steps to rectify that. And I would hope, and I know there are complicating things when you're building a house and you're having a baby and all that, and congratulations to Trent and Ricky on that basis. They're about to do that. So to get involved and to make a difference there. And I think that might be how we try and change this, at least get that coastal vegetation reinstated, protected and cherished by the people that live there. So there's a challenge. I'm going to change how I usually do things. So it's hard for me, but that's what I'm going to do today.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Councillor Rooks.
Thanks, Matt. Sorry. Yeah, I probably share a lot of the same frustrations as Councillor Whelan, and I'll talk a little bit about the trees. I think it's not just my frustration, I think it's the community of Silverleaves that are also frustrated. 11 out of the 22 trees on that property have been removed under this proposal. And it's not just 11 out of 22, but prior to this planning application going forward, at least another 10 have been removed from the property at the northern end. You can clearly see that from Google Maps, and I also visited the site, not going onto the property, but you can see clearly some trees have been removed. So I really feel for the submitters that have put an opposition to this. I feel for the community of Silverleaves that keeps seeing people moving in and chopping all these trees down or taking trees down. I feel for the remaining trees that struggle once their fellow mates get pulled down and they become more vulnerable. And of course, I feel for the wildlife. Probably saddest of all, similar to what Michael Whelan or Councillor Whelan has said, is that it's what's happened is, or what's been proposed falls within our planning scheme. And that's also disappointing. That's all, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendation?
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Point of order.
Yeah.
Are we talking to the application, or are we going to give people a soapbox to talk about vegetation?
I'm happy with the debate by Councillor Whelan and Councillor Rooks that they stuck to the project. So happy to move on. Councillor Bell. Councillor Holstead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too feel very concerned about the removal of trees. My other concern, though, is that these areas are zoned for residential. The planning scheme allows for this sort of building, and if councillors have for a very long time been fighting this issue, then I would have suggested that maybe making some changes, actively making changes in the regulations that we're governed by would be the way to do it, rather than hanging out these people who are applying for planning permits under what we currently allow, and then it comes before council and they are made to feel like they are doing something that's truly, truly wrong. And they're not doing something wrong. Wants to change those laws or make those changes, we need to do that strategic work. I would like to ask one question, Mr. Mayor, in relation to this application. I noticed that in public question time, there was a question around the fencing. I'd like to ask the planning through you, Mr. Mayor, whether that has been addressed, the question that was raised over this particular application. Has it been addressed in maybe the conditions?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, it hasn't been picked up in the planning conditions of the report.
Did you
Okay.
hear that, Councillor Austin? Yep.
Is there a way that we can make sure that the fencing isn't having an impact on the neighbours? It's saying seek clarification for fence between 119 and 121 Silverleaves. Landscape plan notes 10 and 11 refer to paling fence as labelled. Where? Question mark. I'm not sure what that means by that. Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
We're just having a discussion between the couple of plannings at the moment, Councillor Austin.
Sorry, I would have raised this with planning had I have known the question was there prior. But if we are able to address that concern, that'd be great.
So just pause for a second and here's your response, Councillor Austin.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, it's a fence isn't one of the planning permit triggers that's been considered under this application. So the advice would be that the recommendation stands.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Thanks for that. James.
Hang on, Councillor Holstead.
Well, in fact, what other planning triggers?
Councillor Whelan seeking further clarification on the same question.
Removal of the trees. Isn't it the height of the building and the removal of the trees becomes the trigger for it becoming subject to a planning application?
And the land subject to inundation.
Just in terms of the so-called point of order.
Moved on from that one.
Right.
Okay, so no, so the initial response stands, Councillor Holstead, at this stage.
Is there an option for this to be addressed at a later date when do they need to apply for a permit to put a fence up, or?
It's not a trigger, Councillor Holstead, so no.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No worries, thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to the recommendation or against the recommendation? No. Councillor Lasserve, would you like to summarise or put it to a vote?
I'd just like to summarise just a few points there, and I do understand the frustration of councillors because we have dealt with it over at every meeting over a number of years now, and you're right. The answer is change the planning scheme and have more design and development overlay schedules put on these areas. It is within the town boundaries. It is infill, and I think Silverleaves has probably only got 1 or 2 blocks left. So they've got a lot of community around them. I just hope that they, feel that they can be engaged in the community applicant and, work for those environmental goals that we do hold so dear. So I'll put the recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lasserve. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads? Councillors Tassari, Holstead, Lark, Lasserve, Lang, Kent and Whelan, and against Councillors Bauer and Rooks. Carried. Item number H4 Planning Application 2101181 to be presented by Mr. Sturt.
Mr. Mayor, the purpose of this report is to present Planning Application 210118, which seeks to use and develop the land for a single 2-storey dwelling in the Design and Development Overlay 1 located at 1 the Anchorage Corinella. The application was advertised and received 9 submissions consisting of 8 objections. The application has been assessed against the Bass Coast Planning Scheme, has been found to satisfy the provision of the relevant policy and zones. It is recommended that Council resolve to issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit for application 210118. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sturton. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendation as it reads? Well, Councillor Kent, you got in there enthusiastically, and Councillor Lasser. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'm basically moving this because I believe that the development is consistent with development in that area. I'd like it noted too that the owner is proposing to reduce the roof pitch from 22.5 degrees to 18 degrees, and also reduce the height from 8.28 metres to 7.817. People must remember that the 7 metre is just a trigger to look at it. It's not that you can't build above that height. And as I say, I believe the proposal is consistent with the area. Not my type of design, but it's going to look like a fairly modern design, and I'm sure the new owners are going to be very happy there.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Councillor Lasser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, as Councillor Kent's just said about all those triggers that apply to this kind of development, and I'll say it again as I did the last application, infill, it's within the town boundaries, and that estate, this is the last block in that Anchorage estate. So, you know, it's very difficult for people have a view, an opinion about the house style. You know, there's pretty cooker cut single stories as well as double stories. That's not for us to decide. And they have done their best to reduce the height and the bulk of the building. So, you know, unfortunately, it goes with the local planning scheme. So I'm supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Lasser. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No? Councillor Kent, would you like to put it straight to a vote?
Straight to a vote, thank you.
Thank you. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads? Councillors Sari, Bauer, Holstead, Lark, Lasser, Lang, Kent, Rooks and Whelan. Carried. Item number H5 Planning Application 210204 to be presented by Mr. Sturton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present planning application 210204, which seeks to use and develop the land for a single 2-storey dwelling in the Design and Development Overlay 1, located at 45 Penniwells Drive, San Remo. The application was advertised and received 6 objections. The application has been assessed against the Bass Coast Planning Scheme and has been found to satisfy the provision of the relevant policy and zones. It is recommended that Council resolve to issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit for application 210204. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sturton. Can I have somebody move and second this recommendation? Councillor Lasser, seconded Councillor Kent. Councillor Lasser. I hope you're not talking, Councillor Lasser. You're on mute. We're about 20 months into this, Councillor Lasser.
Yes, yeah, 18 months later and I'm still doing it. Well, it triggers the required 7 metre permit because it's over the 7 metres. This is a new estate. You know, people have different varying views of house styles. I've read the objections to it. I think there was 8. It's a maximum height of 7.8. There was, what do we say, 6 objectors. It's a new estate. Look, they're all going to be new builds. It's within that town boundary. You know, the community of Bass Coast has grown certainly over the last 18 months, also at a rapid rate. So I'm not sure what else we can do about it than go back and, you know, look at those, the planning scheme if there's things that people don't want. And views, as we've stated before, are shared. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Laserd. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Councillor Laserd says that it does breach the 7 metre height, but this block of land is a very steep block of land, and if it wasn't for that steepness, I would suggest that it wouldn't be in excess of that 7 metres. Very modern design looking house in a neighbourhood of very modern design housing too. So personally, I think it will fit in there, and it looks like a spectacular house. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation as it reads? Yeah, or Councillor Lang.
Just quickly, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I would just wanted to point out that the Penniwells has their own committee to determine the guidelines of these kinds of developments, and it was also improved through their internal processes as well.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No? Councillor Laserd, would you like to summarise or put it to a vote?
I would just actually like to say that the Penniwells do have that design and development overlay as well. So it's yet another kind of trigger point and hopefully we can have those over more of these estates so that we do get some kind of harmony within the development of them. So I'm happy to put it to the vote, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Laserd. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads? Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Holstead, Lark, Laserd, Lang, Kent, Rooks and Whelan. Carried. Okay, item number H6, Memorandum of Understanding between Bass Coast Landcare and, we have a Councillor Rooks. Would you please step out of the room? We'll just pause for a second. Councillor Rooks has left the building. All right, item number H6, Memorandum of Understanding between Bass Coast Landcare Network and Bass Coast Shire Council, to be presented by Ms Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek council approval for the renewal of the partnership between Bass Coast Landcare Network and Bass Coast Shire Council. The current MOU expired in June 21, and a new MOU has been developed that reflects the strong partnership and shared goals for both organisations. Bass Coast Landcare and the Bass Coast Shire Council aim to encourage sustainable land use practice and promote the conservation and enhancement of biodiversity across the region. Both organisations support the adoption of environmental best management practices to reverse land and water quality decline through community action, knowledge and skills. It is recommended that Council endorse the MOU between Bass Coast Shire Council and Bass Coast Landcare Network with funding of $92,500 per year, indexed by CPI annually until 2024-25. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Kennedy. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendation as it reads? Councillor Whelan, and seconded Councillor Lang. Councillor Whelan.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. This is a great relationship that we have with Landcare, and it allows us to leverage into work on rural land holdings that we couldn't do as a council, in my view. They are that interface. They represent that interface. They have expertise in that area, and I believe they're trusted by the rural landholders. And it's a valuable commodity in that sense. The work that they do, and that you can see as you drive around the Shire, is incredible. And I commend my colleague, Councillor Rooks, who also plays a big part in the Landcare on Phillip Island. He's not here, so we can talk about it. But you know, the investment we make at $90,000 plus dollars leads to great results on the land in terms of the extension of islands, 200,000 trees, protection of Indigenous or remnant vegetation, 58 hectares of that. But they do a lot more than that, and they're doing great work also that will really play in harmony with our climate action plan, the work that they're doing to try and bring our farmers into being able to trade carbon, for example, to make an extra avenue for income off their properties, to also help save the world in some respects. But no, it's a great relationship. They do a great job, and I think this is money incredibly well spent.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. There's not a great deal I can add to Councillor Whelan's great summary. Bass Coast Landcare Network really is an integral part of our community. To be honest, I don't think that you can really quantify the contribution that these individuals make in monetary terms. But, you know, there it is. You invest $91,500 and you get about $2.5 million worth of value to the community in environmental works, and the relationships, as Councillor Whelan said, that they build are indispensable to council. So it's great to be able to support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? Councillor Holstead.
You're on mute.
Councillor Holstead.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just briefly, I support Councillor Whelan and Councillor Lang's statements there, and I'd just add that not only is it the work on the ground that they're doing, but the educational arm of this group is just incredible, and the work that they're doing and teaching farmers especially how to, you know, introduce sustainable agricultural practices is just one of the many things that they do in educating the broader community. So I agree wholeheartedly. It's money very well worth spent. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to also acknowledge the wonderful work that Landcare does, and especially Councillor Rooks, who can't be here to speak to this at this time. He's done some magnificent work on behalf of the Shire. Small steps, but many small steps aggregate into big results, and I fully endorse this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No. Councillor Whelan, would you like to summarise? Put it to a vote. We'll put it straight to a all in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tasari, Bauer, Holstead, Lark, Laserve, Lang, Kemp and Whelan carried. We'll just pause for a couple of minutes while we try and get Councillor Rooks back into the room. Councillor Holstead, while we're waiting, I have to ask, is that a rabbit in over your left shoulder?
It's actually a hare. There's a bit of a story to that, Mr Mayor, but yes, it's a hare.
Okay, it's a big rabbit.
Purchased from one of our local San Remo businesses, I might add.
I'll say Councillor Holstead.
A wascally rabbit.
A wascally big rabbit. All right, we welcome Councillor Rooks back into the room. Can I just check, Councillor Rooks, that you can hear and be heard okay?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Okay. Item number H7, Guide Park Redevelopment Project and Thompson Reserve Vehicle Access Driveway Project to be introduced by Ms Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek council endorsement to increase the Guide Park Redevelopment Project budget to $1.75 million to complete further civil works identified through detailed design. The Guide Park Redevelopment Project will create council's first regional play space that is accessible and caters for all. The variations to the final detailed design will deliver a significantly improved outcome for council and the community. And the estimated cost of $350,000 has been externally sourced through round 2 of the Growing Suburbs Fund. As the increased budget being sought to deliver this project exceed the original project budget, it requires council approval. Further, this report also seeks to endorse Cutler Street in Inverloch as the main vehicle access driveway to Thompson Reserve, and is requesting the allocation of $120,000 to deliver this project. This project will provide a safer and compliant new vehicle access driveway for visitors to the reserve. Council officers commissioned a consultant to undertake the Thompson Reserve Traffic Management Plan in line with the adopted master plan for the reserve. Allocating $120,000 towards the development of the Cutler Street Vehicle Access Driveway project in this financial year will coincide with the delivery of the cricket net training facilities and complete 2 key priorities at the reserve as outlined in the Thompson Reserve Master Plan. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Kennedy. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendations as it reads? Well, that was a photo finish. I'll go with Councillor Lark and to move, and Councillor Lang seconded. Councillor Lark.
I have an alternative recommendation.
You have an
Mayor.
alternative recommendation? Okay. Can we put that up on screen? Just waiting on governance. Everyone's looking at it. Okay, we have the alternative on screen. Would you like to just, without speaking to your alternative, Councillor Lark, read your alternative?
The first recommendation remains as is in relation to Guide Park. And the second recommendation changes to defer consideration of Cuttress Street as the main vehicle access driveway to Thompson Reserve, Inverloch, to a future council meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Lark. Can I have somebody second? Can we take that down? Sorry, now, please. Can I have somebody second? Councillor Holstead. Councillor Lark, would you like to speak to your alternative recommendation?
Certainly. I think, firstly, I'll speak to Guide Park. Obviously, the development of a regional play space facility for people of all abilities is a great initiative and fully support that going forward. In relation to Cuttress Street being the main vehicle access driveway to Thompson Reserve, I recommend that be deferred for further consideration in relation to traffic management and allied matters.
Thank you, Councillor Lark. Councillor Holstead.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I support the Guide Park redevelopment project. I've really got nothing more to add. I think Councillor Lark has covered that. The Thompson Reserve vehicle access, yes, I think it does need a little bit more of a look at. So I'm happy to defer this to another council meeting so that further work can be done around that access point. Nothing further to add. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Would anyone else like to speak to or against Councillor Whelan?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I just want to say, as someone with grandchildren, I'm sure quite a few of us here, probably in that, a few of us anyway, in that position, and I know how important it has been through this lockdown period for my daughter's sanity and for the sanity of our 2-year-old grandson to be able to get out to the local playground. Absolutely devastated they can't get out now because of further lockdown. But the fun they have, the distraction it causes, and the general recreational benefits of these things can't be understated in my view. And I'm wrapped with this development. The other one, that Thompson Avenue, I think that just needs some more consultation. But this one, Guide Park, I want to really give the thumbs up to, looking forward to it myself. I hope that doesn't mean I have to leave the room, but I think it'd be great.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm not going to be supporting this alternative motion because I don't want to delay these both fantastic projects any further. Council sometimes gets criticised for the delay in delivering projects. We've had traffic management consultants who have given us expert advice on the relocation of that driveway to turn into Cuttress Street. We've also received the community groups and the users for that site have also recommended the transfer of the driveway. If we do delay this any further, we also potentially delay the construction of cricket net, which are contingent on the construction of that driveway. I'm afraid that the criticism that we delay projects might be deserved if we're delaying this for further consultation. I'd also like to add that there has been significant consultation within the community, not just the users. So that there were letterbox drops to the vicinity of the neighbourhood in that area among some of the consultations to advise them that this potential change was occurring. And there's about 5 stakeholder groups who have been consulted with this, who are wholly supportive of this driveway change. The proposal aims to change the access from the turning right from an 80-kilometre zone into turning right on a 50-kilometre zone. It's a safety issue. As a user for soccer personally for that site, I would see it as a significant benefit, and I just don't see the point in delaying it any further. Let's just get these projects done.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Would anyone else? Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councillor Lang's assessment of this, and I would like to ask that the 2 parts of this recommendation be split for voting, please.
The 2 parts of the recommendation.
Yeah. Part 1, Section 1, the authorisation for the guide park, and Part 2, that we defer the driveway. Can you do that? Or is it one motion?
No, I can do it. Hang on. I'll just have to seek clarification. Councillor Bauer.
Mayor,
Hang on, sorry, Councillor Lark, I was expecting you. Just let me seek clarification for a second, please. So we do it just because it's been requested.
It should be so complicated.
We can see part 1, and then we can see part 2. And if either of them are voted down, we go back to the original motion for the part that's voted down.
All right, okay, so thank you, everybody, for being patient. Work with me here. So, Councillor Lark, you had a question before I stepped away?
my view is that it should be dealt as one.
Did you have a question, Councillor?
And if it's lost, then it can go back to the original motion, and that can be split at that point.
The advice I've just received is the fact that there's been a request to split the vote. The vote will be split. If one of the votes is lost, then that part of the vote refers back to the original for a decision. So just work with me, but that's the advice I've received. So the fact that Councillor Bauer has requested that the vote be split, the vote will be split. Okay. All right. Any further? Would anyone else like to speak to the alternative motion? Councillor Holstead, have you got do you want to speak because you have already spoken, or have you got?
No, I've got a question, Mr. Mayor. Just that if you can make it very clear on what we're voting on now. I'm finding it very confusing to follow this.
I will confirm all that before we actually vote.
Thank you.
Councillor Lasserve.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2 parts of a great opportunity here, and fully endorse the Guide Park redevelopment project, and being the first regional play space. I think that's excellent, and council should be very proud of themselves there. With the Thompson's Reserve, this has been a part of that master plan since 2013. I think I wouldn't, as the recommendation or the alternative recommendation stands, to defer to another council meeting. This has been on the book since 2013. How many more, we certainly don't want to prolong this. What's it mean to the community as far as, will there be any other changes? What I'd like to know from the officers, Mr. Mayor, is if we defer this bid, is it a month, 2 months, and would the recommendation change when it comes back, other than putting a whole lot of money in again to get another traffic management report done when we've got one? They're the experts, they've given us a report, made a recommendation, and here we are trying to tweak it as we go and defer it for more months when we want to get on with the job.
The alternative recommendation, as I read it, there is no time frame. It just says to come back for a future council meeting. So there is no time frame on when it will come back. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, can the planning department give us some indication as to when they would expect it to come back?
There's no time frame, Councillor Holstead. It's just back for a future meeting. All right. So would anyone else like to speak to the recommendation of the alternative recommendation as it reads? No. Can I now ask, could governance please put the recommendation back on the screen?
Well,
sorry, Councillor
want
Lark.
me to summarise?
Have you got a? Oh, sorry, Councillor Lark. Yep. Would you like to summarise?
Yeah, I think I need to clarify with regard to point 2 in terms of the traffic management aspects. The traffic management, the traffic currently comes in from the Inverloch Venus Bay Road, and it's proposed under this proposal that it be moved further along to Cuttress Street, which won't avoid the traffic turning left and right out of Inverloch Venus Bay Road. And it could cause greater problems in that is the main access point for RV vehicles, for holiday traffic and so forth, particularly during peak periods, going down towards the Big 4 holiday camp and the main Inverloch foreshore camping area. So there needs to be further discussion with RRV in terms of the traffic implications in that regard, through just kicking the ingress and the egress from one point to a more populated point. In addition to that, it's been admitted that the communication has not been optimal with a particular resident and possibly other residents in that community that surrounds the proposed new entrance into Thompson Reserve. I'm fully supportive of the project, absolutely. I'm a cricketer. I want to see those nets. I actually play on that ground. But it's absolutely essential that the traffic management aspects be clarified before this project goes ahead. It might mean just a month or two to clarify with RRV and so forth to indicate what the future might be in terms of the overall and holistic traffic management plan. And it's not designed to kick the can down the road to avoid this project going in. I'm totally in favour of the project with the cricket nets and everything else that's provided. It's just the traffic management plan and the consultation with the community needs to be tightened up, and for a further report to come back to council within a reasonable period.
Thank you, Councillor Lark. Okay, can I just ask if we could put back up on screen the alternative motion? And please bear with me because at the end of these two votes, I'll then have to just seek clarification. So we're going to be voting on part 1, the authorisation to the variation to the Guide Park redevelopment project to complete further civil works and approve a revised budget to 1.75 million. Could I please all in favour of that recommendation as it reads? Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Holstead, Lark, Lang, Kent, Whelan and Rooks, and against? Councillor Lasser. Carried. Part 2, to defer consideration of Cutler Street as the main vehicle access driveway to Thompson's Reserve, Inverloch, to a future council meeting. All in favour of that recommendation as it reads? Councillors Holstead, Lark, Kent and Whelan, and against? Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Laserve and Lang and Rooks. So that is now lost.
Mayor, can I have a division on that, please?
A division on that. Okay, so all in favour of part 2 of the vote? Councillors Holstead, Lark, Kent and Whelan, and against? Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Laserve, Lang and Rooks. Now just pause for 2 seconds and while I seek clarification. Okay, so we need a decision on Cutler Street. So now it reverts back to the original original recommendation that we authorise Cutler Street as the main vehicle access driveway to Thompson's Reserve, Inverloch, and commits $120,000 to deliver this project. All in favour of that recommendation as it reads? Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Laserve, Lang, Whelan and Rooks. And against? Councillors Lark and Kent and Holstead. Sorry, Councillor Holstead. Carried.
And could I have a division on that too, please?
And a division. So in favour of the recommendation as it reads, Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Laserve, Lang, Whelan and Rooks. And against? Councillors Lark and Kent and Holstead. Okay, item number, thank you everybody for sticking with me there and being patient as well. Item number H.8 Wonthaggi Recreation Reserve Power Upgrade Consolidation Project to be presented by Ms Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek council authorisation to commit $565,000 in the 21-22 financial year to complete the Wonthaggi Recreation Reserve Power Upgrade and Consolidation Project. Funds from the Resort and Recreation Reserve for Wonthaggi and realised savings from within Council's Capital Works Program 2021 are proposed to fund this project. This project is required following the submission of a power connection application to AusNet Services, which is the power supplier, to progress the soccer club project. Council was advised that in order to meet the new requirements, it would need to prepare a plan for the entire Wonthaggi Recreation Reserve that will comply with the Victorian Service Installation Rules as required by AusNet Services. Due to the ad hoc nature of electrical works at the reserve over many years, the opportunity to consolidate these will further enhance Council's ability to deliver upon the adopted master plan. It will also provide a consolidated, compliant, future-proof power supply to the reserve. It is intended that should funding be allocated to this project, all projects funded and programmed for the reserve this year will be tendered concurrently. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Kennedy. Can I have somebody move and second this recommendation? Councillor Kent, and seconded Councillor Lang. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The Wonthaggi Recreational Reserve is Crown land but has council assets. The situation here couldn't be foreseen. As a past electrician, I'll give you a very technical view. It's like having a PowerPoint there and we've put an adapter on, and a double adapter and a double adapter and a double adapter. So what we want to do is just clean up the whole park. make it safe and address it for future development. It's got to be done. Simple as that. Thank you.
Councillor Kent, who would have known a past electrician? Is there anything you can't do? Thank you. And Councillor Holstead, I acknowledge, and Councillor Holstead has left the meeting for a couple of minutes. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's great to see that we have an opportunity here to approve another project that will allow us to develop more soccer facilities, community sports facilities. This project will allow for, I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted because the Mayor thinks what I'm saying is amusing. Apologies.
Sorry, Councillor Lang.
Sorry. It's great to see that we can get an opportunity to approve another project here that will bring us a step closer to undertaking the Wonthaggi Soccer Club lighting and pavilion project. So it's also going to mean that we are allowed to have more opportunities to cater for any future renewable energy options for the reserve. So it has to be done. It's part of SP AusNet requirements for the site, and maybe we could get some more technical electrical advice from Councillor Kent on this. But yeah, it's a great project, and I am very excited to be able to endorse it.
Thank you, Councillor Lang, and I acknowledge that Councillor Holstead has stepped back into the room and Councillor Bauer has left the room. Can I just ask Councillor Holstead if you can put your mic back on and just let us know that you can hear and be heard?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No? Okay. Councillor Kent, would you like to summarise or put it to a vote?
Just put it to a vote. Just call me Sparky. Put it to a vote.
We'll put it to a vote. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Holstead, Lark, Laserve, Lang, Kent, Whelan and Rooks. Carried. Item number H3 Planning Application 2. H3 has stepped back in. No one even corrected me on the screen, so just shows. Okay. Item number H9, MOU between the Bass Coast Community Foundation and Bass Coast Shire Council, to be presented by Ms Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek council endorsement of the MOU between Bass Coast Shire Council and the Bass Coast Community Foundation for an additional 20 years. The Bass Coast Community Foundation is a local charitable organisation independent of religious or political persuasion. It was established in 2002 and is responsible to a growing need for a sustainable source of funds for community projects. The foundation operates exclusively within the boundaries of the Bass Coast Shire and is governed by a voluntary board of directors. The MOU between Bass Coast Shire Council and the Bass Coast Community Foundation has been developed to describe the relationship, responsibilities and funding commitment that supports the collaborative working arrangements between both organisations. It is recommended that Council endorse the MOU 2021 to 2024 between Bass Coast Shire Council and the Bass Coast Community Foundation and allocate $35,000 in the 2021-22 year and index by CPI annually over the lifetime of the agreement. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Kennedy. And I just note that Councillor Bauer has stepped back into the room. Councillor Bauer, can I just confirm that you can hear and be heard, please?
Can you hear me?
All good. Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendation? Councillor Laserve and seconded Councillor Rooks. Councillor Laserve.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, look, I feel excited about this one because the MOU is well deserved, and the funding that Bass Coast puts into the Bass Coast Community Foundation. It's a great group, great organisation who have been established since 2002 and contribute 100% of the funds distributions are done within Bass Coast Shire region, which is, really supports our community. It's been listed in the report a number of projects that they've been on, the L2P driving course, the student welfare course. They've assisted so many groups, and also the Women for Change group, which I participated in myself. They do the International Women's Day now. Landcare, supporting women on farms. Really a great organisation with a voluntary board of management, and certainly some very committed donors to that foundation, and it's something that Basco should be very proud of. So I'm happy to put the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Lasser. Councillor Rooks.
Thank you, Mayor Tessari. And I agree with what Councillor Lasser has said, and we'll just add a few other comments about this wonderful group. In the 20 years they've been running, they've put $1 million towards our community in different projects, which is an enormous amount of money. And last financial year was $146,000. And as Councillor Lasser said, she mentioned some of the projects. The projects that they put them towards, I got to meet Carol Blair just recently, who is the chair of the group, and she was saying that they are focusing on social housing, female initiatives and the youth initiatives. And that's where they've been putting their money, and they're great initiatives for our community. Where the council can help out is they find it hard to get funding for operational needs, to support staff to administrative sort of role. And that's where we can really help out as a council. We put a small amount in, which is around $35,000. That's what's been proposed. And the return on investment we get is enormous. So it's a fantastic outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendation as it reads? No? Yep. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to do a handball in a second, but I'll just follow on from Councillor David Rooks that the foundation cannot use their tax deductible donations for operational costs, and that anybody who donates money should realise and will be told that their money goes to the cause. It goes directly to the issue. But I have a bit to do with the L2P program. That is a fantastic program addressing issues for young people to be able to get their licences when they don't have that parent who can drive them around, or they don't have that motor vehicle to use. So it's a great program, that one, addressing the needs of our young people. But I believe that Councillor Halstead was involved in a youth program only a week ago, and I'm just suggesting she gives an insight for us. Thank you.
There's the handball. Okay, would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? Councillor Halstead, you were sort of pushed into that one.
Yes, I was thinking, would I say something or not? And did I have anything further to add? Yes, I was part of the Kids for Catalysts recently, which is a program that the foundation ran with the New Haven Primary School, and the kids were just amazing. I won't go into just how the program works, but without the foundation, it wouldn't have gone ahead. So that's the sort of program. They get involved with our youth. They get involved on all levels throughout the community, and the work that they do, you just can't put a price on it. Again, Councillor Rooks raising the fact that donations can't be used for administration. Hopefully, this small contribution by us as a council will help go towards that. So I could not put this recommendation more for anything else. I'm just 100% supportive of what they do. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendation as it reads? No? Councillor Lasser, would you like to summarise or put it to a vote?
I'll do a quick free ad for them. Mr. Mayor, I think it's an opportune time while we've got people listening online, and certainly for people within the community, if they want to become part of that donation, philanthropic kind of contribution to a community, a great cause, this is really one group that they should get involved in. And the board, the board members contribute a lot in their time and certainly in money. And even a lot of our officers right through from my early days in council, I know them, people who have been involved in it. It's a great cause. So please consider it. They're always looking for further donations. but I certainly recommend that, put the recommendation, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lasserve. You just probably finished just in time, then Councillor Lasserve, to be honest. We'll put it to a vote. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Holstead, Lark, Lasserve, Lang, Kent, Whelan and Rooks. Carried. Okay, item number H10, Australian First Peoples Advisory Committee, to be introduced by Ms Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present to Council the process undertaken to establish the Australian First Peoples Advisory Committee and to endorse the nominated councillor to join and co-chair the committee, which will commence in September 2021. The council is committed to reconciliation and has committed to the development of the first stage of its Reconciliation Action Plan and the establishment of the Australian First Peoples Advisory Committee, which will provide a formalised bond between the community and council. An open expression of interest process calling for Aboriginal and or Torres Strait Islander community representatives was opened on Monday the 21st of June and closed on Sunday the 11th of July. Council received 6 community representative nominations and they've all been appointed to the committee. The first meeting of the committee is expected to be held in early September 2021. Council must nominate one councillor who will co-chair the committee. Upon commencement, one community representative will also be nominated through a transparent voting process as co-chair with the nominated councillor. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Kennedy. Can I have somebody move? Councillor Whelan, and seconded? Councillor Lang. Can we just hold for 2 seconds? Councillor Holstead, have you got no sound? Okay, so Councillor, we make note that Councillor Holstead has lost sound and therefore stepped out of the meeting at this point while we get somebody to contact. Okay, we'll move forward. So the recommendation has been moved by Councillor Whelan, seconded by Councillor.
Can I clarify, Mr Mayor, that I'm nominating the Mayor as Mayor and the Deputy Mayor as the alternate representative, just to clarify the recommendation?
There does have to be a recommendation put forward. So that's fine, Councillor Whelan. So, Councillor Whelan, would you like to speak to your recommendation? Can somebody please get in contact with Councillor Holstead?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I think this is a very important thing that the councils are becoming involved in, is engaging directly with our First Nations people. It's not that we haven't in the past, but this is a new and closer mechanism that really brings that close liaison and advisory source from First Nations people to directly to council, and that is really important. A voice to council, if you like. And I want to say why it's important is because I quote Eddie Betts, actually, who's retiring, great champion of Carlton and Adelaide, and saying there is racism in the AFL now that we may think that's distinct from council, but it's not. We do have it in our community, is what it says. And he said, we have it in the AFL, and he's not the one that can fix it. It's the white people and the other people that need to fix it. And that's what we need to reach out and really understand the cultural divide that can exist if we're not sort of conscious of it, to really get that understanding, because we can be blind to the things that really impact people and impact them in a big way. And it's that disadvantage that occurs in the community for generations that has been there. Recently finished reading Lewitcha O'Donoghue's book, and it's just entrenched in our society. We need to address that and root it out, and really make for that balanced playing field, because we're missing out. It's everyone that's missing out, not just people who are the victims of this injustice that does exist in the community. Cultural awareness will enrich us all. And that's where we need this advice. We need this liaison. We need the dialogue, and we need to listen, most importantly. And I think this is council reaching out with that opportunity to really become wiser in how we make decisions, and really to consider this really important part of our community. They're small in number, but they are big in achievement when you look at Ash Barty and and I shouldn't just go to sporting field, but in the arts. Mr Mayor, you and I were at the NAIDOC week art opening, one of the few things we've been able to do in a public sense for a while, but just the quality of the art and the quality of the people that we had to and the enlightenment that you can get in that situation is really incredible. So I'm really looking forward to you not going to these meetings from time to time, Mr. Mayor, so I can go, because I think there's going to be a lot in it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Before I go any further, I'd just like to clarify, Councillor Holstead, can you see you've returned? Can you, hear us and be heard?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
You're all good, Councillor Holstead.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that this is a really important step. Next step in building relationships and towards reconciliation with First Nations people in our community. There's about 300 people, according to the 2016 census, who identify as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander in our community, and it's important to note that they have higher rates of disadvantage on a lot of areas compared to the rest of the community. So I hope that we can see some really good, tangible, positive outcomes for our community here through this First Nations Advisory Committee, First Peoples Advisory Committee, and I think that you'll do a great job, and Councillor Whelan will do a great job as the sub on the committee.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? In fact, before we do, sorry, Councillor Bauer, can I just confirm, Councillor Holstead, you can still hear okay?
Yes, sorry, Mr. Mayor, I've had a few technical issues this end, but I think I'm okay now.
All right, well, we'll put you back on mute for a second. And Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I fully endorse this motion, and I think that Councillor Whelan has summed it up very well indeed. I'd just like to add that I think it's appropriate that the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor be our representatives as leader to leader of the communities. And I think that's very important so that you can directly bring back to us lowly councillors any recommendations that are required. But I fully endorse this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer, and for the tongue-in-cheek and the endorsement. Thank you. Councillor Holstead.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I fully support this committee. I actually had a few reservations when reading the agenda at first, and like to be upfront about that. I just thought another committee, no more red tape for everyone to get through, but I've had conversations with my colleagues and with officers in relation to what this committee aims to achieve, and I'm really excited about where this committee could take us, and the fact that we've actually got our First Nations people in their own committee. It's just such a milestone for us on Bass Coast, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what they can contribute up to the RAP, obviously. So congratulations to everyone involved, and I'm looking forward to following and learning. Thanks very much.
Good result, Councillor Holstead. Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No? Councillor Whelan, would you like to put it to a vote or something? Put it to a vote. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Lark, Lasserve, Lang, Kent, Whelan, Rooks and Holstead. Carried. Item number H11, Review Community Grants Program. Ms County with the starring role.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek council endorsement of the proposed amendments to the Community Grants Program following a detailed review process, and to seek endorsement of the Community Grants Policy 2021 and Community Grants Assessment Criteria 2021. The Community Grants Program provides funding to support not-for-profit organisations based in Bass Coast who wish to deliver projects and initiatives that benefit the Bass Coast community. Council officers have recently undertaken a thorough review of the Community Grants Program. The proposed amendments are reflective of the feedback received throughout the review from community groups, clubs, councillors, council officers, and the benchmarking undertaken with other councils. It is proposed to amend the current program through the following areas: scope of the grants program, funding levels, grant categories, and assessment criteria and process. The changes within the policy and assessment criteria are proposed to be incorporated into the grant guidelines prior to the first round of community grants 2021-2022 being opened in September this year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Kennedy. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendation? Councillor Rooks, and seconded Councillor Holstead. Councillor Rooks.
Thank you, Mayor Tsari. Yeah, this very popular and successful program continues. And thanks very much to Shirley and her team that do the great work behind the scenes on this popular program. And they undertook a review which brought back great results and some suggestions for some changes. And one of those is to include a quick response category, which they're doing. And then the one I want to talk about more is the change in the criteria. So in the assessment criteria, there's a new portion which is to do with climate change. I'd like to just read it out. And it's the applicant demonstrates the consideration has been given to sustainable principles and recognises the role community can play in mitigating risks caused by climate change. It's an appropriate assessment criteria to have because we are declared a climate emergency council and we have our climate change action plan. This gives every community group that applies for one of these project funding the opportunity to think about climate change, to think about some sustainability principles within their project. That could be just as simple as making sure that they use solar wherever they can, like instead of getting a gas product, buying a solar product. It might be as simple as ensuring that the paint they're buying is non-toxic, so it goes back into the ground or any wastage is not bad for the environment. It could be looking at the cyclical nature of products that we want to have, that cyclical economy, looking at recycling products or reusing products in their project. So it's a great initiative. I'm really pleased that it's in there. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Councillor Holstead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I second Councillor Rooks's comments there, and maybe we could provide to the community a list of those sorts of things that they could include in their applications, such as the things that Councillor Rooks has listed. I think people are still learning about what a difference they can make, and I'm sure probably a lot of people aren't even aware you can buy paint that's non-toxic these days. So those sorts of things I think might be best listed in the application forms. But yes, a very exciting program the community loves, and as councillors we should love too. So I'll be supporting the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Would anyone else like to speak to the recommendation, speak to or against the recommendation, I should say? No? No? Okay. Councillor Rooks, would you like to summarise or put it to a vote?
Yeah, just that thing that Councillor Halstead mentioned with regards to the sustainability principles and what they might be and some examples. I believe some extra work is going to be done by the officers to make it easier for people to understand how they can align themselves to sustainability principles to further that education. So that's a good thing.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Put it to a vote. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tsari, Bauer, Lark, Laserve, Lang, Kent, Whelan, Rooks and Holstead. Carried. Okay, with that, you can now have a rest, Ms Kennedy. Item number H12, reappointment of Audit and Risk Committee Chair, to be presented by Mr Mack.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek formal council approval to reappoint Mr Vincent Philpott as the independent chair of the Audit and Risk Committee for a further 2 years. Mr Philpott has provided strong leadership to the committee and has recently expressed his desire to take up the final extension available. It is recommended that council reappoint Mr Philpott as the Audit and Risk Committee chair for a further 2 years. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mack. Can I have somebody move and second this recommendation as it reads? Councillor Whelan, and seconded Councillor Rooks. Councillor Whelan.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, we're well led. Well, firstly, let me qualify that the council representatives on this is the Mayor, Councillor Tsari and myself. And so I worked beside Mr Philpott now for going on 2 years. Very professional chair of the meeting has been. A well-led committee. I think it's doing really good work. It monitors the work of council and also the audit functions particularly well, I believe. So I think there's a vacancy and this is an excellent way of filling it.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Councillor Rooks.
Thank you, Mayor Dasari. Though I'm not part of this Audit and Risk Committee, I only hear good feedback about Mr Philpott, so I'm happy to support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendation? No? Okay, Councillor Whelan, put it to a vote. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Lark, Lasserve, Lang, Kent, Whelan, Rooks, Holstead. Carried. Item number H13, review of instrument of delegation. Councillor to staff. To be presented by Mr Mack.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to recommend that Council adopts the instrument of delegation from Council to staff and revoke the previously adopted instrument of delegation from Council to staff. These delegations facilitate the achievement of good governance and effective service delivery by empowering positions to make decisions on behalf of Council at the appropriate level. The instrument of delegation has been updated to reflect changes and requirements to a number of relevant acts and regulations and is recommended to Council for adoption. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mack. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendations? Councillor Rooks and seconded. Councillor Lang. Councillor Rooks.
Thank you, Mr Tassari. Wayne Mack has covered, I think, everything quite thoroughly, other than the fact that we do make sure we do the right thing when these changes come about by following the rules, and that's by using our lawyers. And so we ensure that what we're putting forward is accurate. And other than that, I'm happy to support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Rooks. Councillor Lang.
Nothing further to add, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendation? No? Councillor Rooks, you happy to put it to a vote?
Yes.
Put it to a vote. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Lasserve, Lang, Kent, Whelan, Rooks and Holstead, and against and abstain. Carried. Okay, item number H14, Instrument of Appointment and Authorisation, Planning and Environment Act 1987, to be presented by Mr Mack.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to recommend that Council appoint the named officers as authorised officers under the Planning and Environment Act 1987. The recommended changes to instruments of appointment and authorisation will be made to implement Council's decision. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mack. Can I have somebody move and second this recommendation as it reads? Councillors Holstead and Lang. Councillor Holstead.
I'm just happy to support the recommendation and happy to put to a vote, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holstead. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Nothing further to add.
Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No? Put it to a vote. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Lasserve, Lang, Kent, Whelan, Rooks and Holstead, and against and abstain. Councillor Lark. Carried. Item number H15. Instrument of Appointment and Authorisation, Environmental Protection Act 2017. Mr Mack to introduce.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to recommend that Council appoint the named officers as authorised officers under the Environmental Protection Act 2017. The recommended changes to instruments of appointment and authorisation will be made to implement Council's decision. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mack. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendations as they read? Councillor Bauer and seconded. Councillor Lang got in first. Councillor Bauer, would you like to speak to the recommendation?
I think this is one of these speak for itself motions, and I'm happy to put it forward to a vote.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Lang.
Nothing further to add. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? We'll put it to a vote. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Laserve, Lang, Kent, Whelan, Rooks and Holstead, and against and abstain. Councillor Lark, carried. Item number H16, review of instrument of Sub-Delegation Environmental Protection Act 2017, council to staff, to be introduced by Mr Mack.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to recommend that council adopts the instrument of Sub-Delegation Environmental Protection Act 2017 for council to staff. New delegations of powers to local governments came into effect on 1 July 2021. These delegations facilitate the achievement of good governance and effective service delivery by empowering positions to make decisions on behalf of council at the appropriate level. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mack. Can I have somebody move and second the recommendation as it reads? Councillor Bauer, seconded. Councillor Lang. Councillor Bauer.
Statutory again, and just move it to be voted on.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Well said. Councillor Lang, would you like to speak to this recommendation?
Very briefly, Mr Mayor, just to highlight that we've received legal advice on this and that it's that due diligence has been undertaken in order to arrive at this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No? Put it to a vote. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads. Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Laserve, Lang, Kent, Whelan, Rooks and Holstead. Against? Abstain? Councillor Lark. Carried. Okay, stat reports. Can I have somebody move and second that we receive items I1 to I4 to be considered as a block? Councillor Rooks and seconded Councillor Laserve. Sorry, just catching up with my paperwork. All in favour? Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Lark, Laserve, Lang, Kent, Whelan, Rooks and Holstead. Would anyone like to speak to any of the reports? No? Okay, can I ask that somebody move and second that the recommendations attached to the report, item I1 to I4 be adopted? Councillor Whelan and seconded. Councillor Laserve. All in favour? Councillors Tassari, Bauer, Lark, Laserve, Lang, Kent, Whelan, Rooks and Holstead. Carried. Urgent business, I have none. Is anyone putting any late urgent business forward? No. Hang on, let me turn my page. That brings us to the conclusion of this meeting. Our next meeting will be held virtually on the 15th of September 2021, commencing at 1 o'clock. It'll be opened via public live stream. I thank you all for watching. I thank you all for staying patient. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned things. And as far as as far as Christian Stefani goes, that's his last meeting. So, Christian, that's all, folks, for you as far as meeting goes. All the best with what you do moving forward. And with that, thank you all so much and see you all in a month's time. Can we just hold for a minute while we wait?